This is my journey. Inspired one story at a time, a library of leaders was created. It began as a journey to learn. As time went on, it began to grow. All it needed was a platform, and this podcast was created to listen, to inspire, to share. I am a storyteller, and this is my journey. Welcome to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. I'm your host, Steve Anderson, and today our guest is Randy Carr. Randy is President and CEO of World Emblem, the largest emblem and patch producer of the world. The Hollywood, Florida-based company produces 250 million products per year, including embroidered patches and emblems for sports headwear, footwear, sports garments, uniforms, and other apparel. Mr. Carr has made a significant impact on the embroidery industry by investing in the largest equipment and state-of-the-art technology. With 1,000 plus employees and an impressive lineup of over 1,450 cutting-edge embroidery machines, World Emblem is able to manufacture and deliver large-scale projects in as little time as 24 hours to clients including New Era, Aramark, Cintas, Perry Ellis, and Levi's. Under his leadership, World Emblem is also committed to sustainability and utilizes resources, saving materials and methods, including LED lighting, translucent roof panels, pollutant-free Madeira premium threads, and lean manufacturing to minimize waste and maximize productivity. Mr. Carr has been CEO of World Emblem for more than 20 years. He began his career as a family-run company as an apprentice to his father, Gerald Carr, who started the company in 1993. Randy, welcome to the program. It's great to have you on today.
Stephen, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So give us a little background information on how the company started. I think I read where your brother, and your father started together and had a little bit of a blip, and where it is today.
Yeah, no problem. My father had an emblem company, or an embroidery company in West New York, New Jersey, which was like the embroidery capital of the world when we were growing up. And the company went out of business in 1988. He pulled my brother and I out of school. At the time, I was in university in my first year, and he told me, you can either pay for school yourself, or we're going to restart this company in Miami. So in 1990, we restarted the company in Medley, which is a suburb of Miami, the three of us, and two machines, or one machine that he took from his previous company. Fast forward now, 34 years forward, and we have over 1 million square feet of manufacturing space, 1,200 employees. And we're the largest emblem and badge manufacturer in the world.
And then your father passed away unexpectedly, right, in 2000?
Yeah, he passed away. At the same time, we lost our biggest customer, which is about 50% of our business. 2 months later, my father passed away, and we were only in Miami at the time, and we didn't know how that was going to work out. That was a pretty dark time for us.
I can only imagine. Sorry to hear that, though. But then you became the CEO, and were you primed to be the CEO, or were you thrown in with take over the reins and here you go? Tell
me. When he passed away, I was 26. So, I was the CEO on paper, but I wasn't a CEO. And I don't think I really ever became a CEO until, maybe a decade ago. I remember asking, what CEO is supposed to do, and asking people just around me, like, what is a CEO supposed to do? Like, I only knew what I did from day to day, and that was whatever came over my desk. Without proper training or mentorship, it's a very, it's a unique thing. It's a unique role. So, no. So the answer to the question is no. I was on paper, but I wasn't.
Yeah. So you were thrown into this position, it sounds like, and then not only was it a big position, but you lost 50% of your customer base, and now you're having to deal with that. So when you took over the role with that not much preparation, I mean, I would assume that the overwhelm was just immense. Um, where did you start? What did you focus on?
Golly, it's been so long, but I'll tell you the one thing we did do, um, and we were doing it before my dad passed away, was we were leaning heavily into tech. Um, the internet was just, I wouldn't say becoming popular because it's obviously it was a decade or 15 years, but e-commerce was just getting started. Like second tier e-com was getting started, maybe a couple of years prior. So I had been investing in, now it's pretty normal, but at the time it was like the first kind of cloud computing system where people would scan artwork and put it online, and then submit their artwork via some way to get the images to us for us to create logos for them. And at the time it was novel. Prior to what we were doing, people would FedEx stuff or UPS it overnight or put it in the mail. And it was expensive and it would take forever. So we just leaned into things like that. And we continue to lean into that. And my competitor in the space, which we were selling strictly into the industrial uniform industry, was not. So fortunately, a couple customers or a couple companies looked at us as though we were technically advanced, and we got some opportunities to sell some new clients that we otherwise would not have had that opportunity to do had we not looked at technology as being an efficiency answer. So I think that was probably the biggest thing. And the other thing we did was we used to sell T-shirts and clothing, and I got rid of those businesses right away. It was like the first decision I made, just because it spread us too thin.
Yeah, interesting. So, you've been at it now for, 24 years as the CEO of this company, and so what do you attribute your success to? When you think you just explained that you made some good decisions and you got the tech going, but when you look back on it, what were the leadership traits that you adopted and went forward with that enabled you to be where you're at today?
First of all, a lot of luck. The second thing is we fell into a niche business that allowed us to have it's a difficult product to produce with not a whole lot of competition, and we have competitors, but not a whole lot of competition. The margins are thin, so and the barrier to entrance is difficult. So doing what we do, we manufacture emblems and badges. As you said in the intro, it's the volumes are they're huge volumes. Anywhere between 250,000 pieces a day to 500,000, even more. 24 hours is our turn time, but half of those products ship same day. So the digital infrastructure you need to have in order to facilitate those turn times is tremendous. So, that was one of the things that really, again, leaning to tech was really the answer for us for everything. As far as, the leadership competencies, again, I put a lot of it to just to luck for the first decade. Having the right people around me at the right time. Working incredibly hard, and just fortunately, we made one more right decision than the wrong one, and we never really put ourselves out of business. I can't think of any individual decision or competency that I would take any credit for.
Yeah, is your brother still in the business?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so you've been doing this for a while, and like you said, there's some luck involved, but obviously you must have made some good decisions. You have 1,000+ employees. Tell me a little bit about what is your day-to-day like, CEO of a company with that many employees and that much, tech going on. What are you? You just tell me what you do on the day-to-day. What do you focus
So
on?
I'll tell you. I just want to go back to your other question. Like the last decade has been way more clear for me than the first 15 years. So some of it, and I put a lot of that on YPO, just getting involved with YPO.
Yeah.
And
for those that don't know that, that's Young Presidents Organization.
So, again, without a mentor or without somebody telling you what to do, you don't know what to do. So your only avenue is to read or ask questions, right? So, getting into Forum, being in YPO, and getting a lot of the guidance from there, they pushed me into, we were always very tech heavy. But one of the guys in my forum is they've been running a lean manufacturing business model for the last 2 decades. And he's been on me like it doesn't take much. The guy's a baller. He's running $1 billion company, and he turns to me and he says, "Look, this is the management system we use." And I went to his place. I toured it for 2 days, and I was like, sold. Coming out of COVID. We knew we had to get more out of the people we had, and we weren't going to be able to pay them more to keep up with the necessary requirements, and to keep up with the inflation. So we turned to University of Kentucky, and we implemented the lean business model. So what we call now is the World Level Management System. We've been running that process for about 3 years now, and it's changed the whole business.
Yeah.
So just to answer it's important that I go to that. Just to answer your question, what do I do today? I run that management system, which is, looking at the daily management boards, to having daily huddles, to having a weekly status meeting, to having monthly one-on-ones with my team, to working on leadership development with my director of HR, those types of things.
Okay. And how many people report directly to you then? Do you?
So I had a dozen reporting to me, and we just made it. We just broke it down to 6.
Yeah, that's.
So now 6.
I'm sure that made a difference, for sure.
A huge difference.
Yeah. So explain a little bit. I mean, I think some of us would probably kind of assume we know what lean system is, but explain it how you see it and how you think it really helped your company.
Well, so I think the first thing is it's clarifying the roles and responsibilities of everybody in the business. The second thing is waste reduction. And then the third thing is continuous improvement, just having everybody in the business having a systematic way of running the business and reducing waste. So on the surface, it's very simple. Like conceptually, it's simple. Implementation is simple for one person. For 1,200 people, it's more complex. Toyota does it better than anybody in the world. And we're just learning this whole systematic way of running the business. And we're told from UK and these other companies, it's a decade to even get it running to the level of to becoming an expert. We're only 3 years into it, and the differences are monumental. And it's understanding standard operating procedures, standard work for everything, understanding what role everybody plays in the business, to looking at hour by hour productivity and looking for anything that could be causing waste, to inefficiencies or anything that's causing the customer pain. And the entire system is about customer success.
So, that's the processes and the procedures and things that go along with that are important, but it's also a huge culture change, I would assume, for your company. So how do you get people to buy in, and how do you get them to see your vision? And was that hard, or are they still working on that?
It's still working on it, and I think I don't think we'll ever not be working on that. But we started with having a turnaround firm come in here. And when they came in, they did the work for us, and we got the results. The minute they left, we went right back to what we were doing before.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Then we bring in University of Kentucky, and the difference is they taught us how to help ourselves. They didn't do anything for us. So we're now about 19, 20 months into working with University of Kentucky's true lean program. And the changes have been monumental. It is a cultural change. We did have to remove a few people because they weren't committed to living these values. But I think at the end of the day, the systems that we're putting in place makes everyone's jobs easier. And I think inherently people want to win, and we're winners. So the people that want to win want to be on a winning team. And when they start seeing the success, they buy in. And when they buy in, other people buy in. And we're now getting that sort of inertia where it's not me pushing the string, it's the individuals in the business towing the line and bringing everybody with them.
So when you brought in the consulting firm, I imagine you spent a boatload of money to do that. And so,
Seven figures, seven figures.
figures. Wow. And so then your company just went back, and then the University of Kentucky came in. So I'm fascinated and really curious about, so what did the University of Kentucky program teach you that the consultant didn't? Is it leadership stuff, or is it, what?
Yeah, so it's crazy. So, and I'll tell you what, the consulting firm is awesome. Like, I wouldn't do anything different than I did, because these guys came in and they found, whatever I paid them, I got back twofold. So it made it real apparent to me of how poorly we were running the business. So that's the first thing. And I wouldn't even say it was bad. It was just, there was so much opportunity. And mind you, we're doing exponentially better than we were. And there's still so much opportunity. Like everywhere you look in every business, there's so much waste. But the easy answer to your question is the consulting firm was pushing a string. They were telling us what to do. Do this now. Run that meeting here. Do this. University of Kentucky was teaching my people how to do the work, and then getting out of the way and looking for the results of the change. And it's a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, it's just, it's kind of goes back to that, teaching people to lead from any level. If they adopt it and embrace it and then lead going forward, they don't have to be told what to do. They can be part of the change, so to speak.
So my coach at University of Kentucky, and I meet with him every other week now. And the reason I do it is to make sure that it's my number one thing, is this turnaround. And this implementation is my number one thing, the main thing on my desk. And he's always on me saying, imagine what happens when you have 1,200 people all solving problems on their own.
Yeah.
Like, you could solve a problem and I could solve a problem, but imagine how powerful it is when 1,200 people are all solving problems in the business. Like, there's no, there's a reason why Toyota made $38 billion last year in profit. Like, and they're only 40 years older than World Emblem. So the numbers are ridiculous.
Yeah. Wow. So tell us a little bit about, you said that you have a coach and that you work with a coach, and it's kind of a lot of people hear about, it would be good to have a coach, but yet some people don't make that step. Tell us about why you decided to get a coach and what that does for you to become a better CEO.
All right, so I have a few. I should say I have a couple. I don't just have one. But I'm in this role, and I'm fortunate to be in this role, and I don't take it for granted. And I come to win every day. So, putting the lean operating system, that world level management system in the business is my number one priority right now. I don't know what I don't know. And the risk of sounding ignorant or silly, I have this coach on staff to remind me every week how important this is, and make sure I'm not missing anything as it relates to the implementation of this management system and running this lean business. As I said, it's my number one priority. And that means developing the people, make sure the people fit into the business, make sure the right roles are there, or whatever I need help with. This gentleman is there to remind me and push me in that direction. Now, it's not for financial stuff or sales related things, but it is the management system that runs the business. So, we're pushing lean or WMS into our sales organization, into our finance part of the business, into our R&D part of the business. So it doesn't just work on manufacturing. It's how you manage the entire business. So, and right now, this is where I need support.
And, do you ever feel like, like, do you disagree with his input sometimes? Is it kind of like,
Yeah.
oh no, that's not the way it goes? And
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? Like, sometimes you got to have a little faith too, So, uh, given like I gave you a little bit of my history, but we lost everything when my dad's business went under. We were well to do, and then we had nothing. So, I have this innate fear of disrupting what I have and then losing it again.
yeah,
So the people that surround me know that because I tell them that. So they kind of coach me through some of those decisions too. I'll give you an example. We had this reorg, the 12-person reorg that you're talking about, that we talked about a little bit earlier.
yeah,
I went from 12 to 6 people. There was a lot of upset people that weren't reporting to the CEO.
yeah.
Probably 6. These guys walked me down how to handle it, why they felt it was the right decision, and like days after the decision was made, every one of them was right. But I would have never made them. I just wouldn't have done it.
Well, I think that brings up a great point. I mean, people will usually understand things, maybe be a little pissed because they didn't get the position they wanted to, or they have to report to somebody else. But, if they understand why, if you explain the why and be transparent about it, I think most people come around with that, and that's kind of what you experienced, it sounds like.
The crazy thing, it was a little more complicated than that, because even my relationship with some of the people that we're talking about was not very good. Like, one of the guys worked for me for 25 years. He was reporting to me. And on the surface, I had a great relationship. We would fight every day, though. And like, the relationship was wearing thin. Now, he still works here in a much different capacity, but he's happier and I'm happier. So like, there was just you could see it breaking down through the process. And I just wasn't able to make the decision without somebody sort of framing it for me differently or pushing me to do it. So yeah, but you're right though. People see it after, in hindsight. When it works out, it looks good. If it doesn't work out, obviously it's, it's
Yeah,
and not everything works out the way it's supposed to too, but somehow you get through.
Yeah, well, people, change is hard for people, and especially when it's like you feel like you've, I don't know if demote is the right word, but all of a sudden now you're reporting to somebody else, and so there's titles and all that kind of stuff that go along with all that, and
All ego.
all ego. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. So, with I think you said you had 1,200 employees now. How do you have touch points with how many of those people? I mean, do you get out into the factory that's doing the work? Do you travel around a lot, or is it are you more just working with the executive team?
No. I travel quite a bit, so I probably, last week and this week were the first 2 weeks I haven't traveled all here, and primarily because my son just came back from university, so I wanted to be home for the first couple of weeks when he's while he like reacclimates into like from 4 years of at school and just kind of back into our world.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no, I'm in Mexico probably once every 4 weeks for a week. I'm in Houston once a quarter and Atlanta once a quarter. I'm going to Europe next week to spend the week at our UK factory. So I spend quite a bit of time at our locations.
So how many factories do you have, and what parts of the world?
So we have a factory in Mexico, a 500,000 square foot factory in Aguascalientes, Mexico. We have a factory in Norcross, Georgia, one in Houston, Texas, one in Ontario, California, one in Toronto, Canada, and one in the United Kingdom in Spilsby, England.
I imagine that was quite interesting, trying to manage and maneuver through COVID with different countries and different laws and restrictions to deal with. That sounds tough.
I would say, the rules were the same for everybody. So it was just, it wasn't like we were dealing with something different than something that they were, meaning my competitors. So like, if all the rules are different, then it's just different. It's how you activate for that situation. We handled it really well. We got into the face mask business in February, way before everybody else did. So way before PPP. So, we had our busiest month, February, March, and April of 2020. And then we kind of rolled into the next thing and rolled into the next thing. And we just kept rolling things forward. Like, and none of it was our core. But eventually the core came back, and probably 2 years later, and like I said, I mean, we rolled for about a year, and then we said, all right, like we need to activate this lean idea, and that was the next thing, And that's not to say it's our only stuff. I mean, we have major tech initiatives going on all the time, and major product development stuff, and R&D and that kind of stuff too. But again, from my desk forward, lean is the thing.
Well, that was, I would assume that your business is something you can't do from home, so you can't just go to your home office and do it. So, so when you say you rolled into other things that weren't your core, like what kind of things are you talking about? You're not.
So example, like we did face masks for 3 months, right? And that was like, we were chasing that when we sold, like the first day we put them online, the next day it was like our sales, we had the busiest sales day we ever had in the history of the business. And that lasted for like 2 months. And then everyone was doing face masks. So like that business went away, like overnight. It went from like a boom to like gone.
Wow.
But then it was branded face masks, and we're branders. So we make MOs, badges, labels, that kind of stuff. So then it was, the TSA needed 5 million transfers to go on face masks. So that was 3 months. Then a company came to us and they were doing these clear face masks. So you could talk and see through the mask. And we did that for 3 months. And then by that time, things really started to level off and come back. So I think by November of 2020, like we really saw like revenue plateaued at our core. It wasn't good, but it wasn't bad. It was enough to pay everybody. We didn't have to let anybody go through the entire pandemic. Yeah, it was pretty wild, and we were really good. Like we did really like legit handled things really well.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure that your employees felt a lot of warmth and loyalty to that you were able to keep them on.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. It was, it was, during the face mask time, it was 80 hours a week work. So I'm sure I hope they did, you never really can tell. It depends on what the receiving party kind of wants. If it's just money, then yeah. Some people wanted the money and staying home. We had a hard time getting people to come back to work. So it depends on where we work too. Where we're in the country geographically, some locations were a little harder than others.
Yeah.
But like everybody else, for the most part, we made it through.
So I'm doing a little research for this interview today. Seeing you on other podcasts and reading some things you said, you tend to use the word lean in a lot. So what do you mean by leaning in, and what does that mean to you and your company?
So, all right. So I do. And, when I say lean in, I mean the things that we're really focusing on. So, I mean, we run our planning and everything else, but there are certain cores or the fundamentals that we think we're really good at. So, like I say, we lean into tech. We're really good technically. We spend more than the average company on technology in our space. The average company in our space, 3 to 4% of revenue goes to IT. Ours is closer to 11 to 12%. So I would say that's leaning into technology, leaning into IT to solve problems, leaning to IT to pull the business forward into the future. We say we're a tech firm that manufactures envelopes. So that defines some of our characteristics of the business. We lean into lean manufacturing. We're now a lean manufacturing business. We've been doing it long enough that defines our core. So that's what I mean by that term.
Okay. And since you're a tech company, does AI come into view? Is that part of what you're doing and how you use it?
Without question. We contracted a firm about 3 months ago, and all they do is generative AI work to do some work on imaging. We're a digital imaging firm. We probably process between 1,000 to 1,500 images a day, and return those back to customers as renditions of the products that they're looking for us to reproduce in our in our badging and emblem techniques. We have about 110 people in that department, and it takes anywhere between 24 to 48 hours to reproduce those images. So now we're looking at generative AI to help solve that problem.
And so, from a just layman's perspective, so what does AI do? I mean, is it?
There's a couple ways. No problem. There's a couple ways to come at this thing. So, we went to Microsoft, like, I would say probably 2 months ago, maybe 4 months ago now. We had what we call the our first AI summit. And I grabbed every one of our suppliers that I had, our PR firm, our marketing agency, our digital ad agency, our actual tech contractors, people from Microsoft, threw them in a room and said, all right, talk to me 2 days about what's coming for the next 5 years. Tell me everything I have to know. What do I have to worry about? So we took two directions, right? So the first one was we're a Microsoft shop, so we need to understand how do we use everything Microsoft's doing to make sure we can take advantage of the tools that we have. We use BC, Office 365, Microsoft CRM, Microsoft Marketing, so Teams, SharePoint. So how do you take advantage of all those things, and then using what's called Microsoft's Copilot, which is their AI tool? How do we make sure we can leverage that as much as possible? And they gave us the playbook, right? And we brought them in and out of consulting on how to get set up for that. So that's over here in the business. And then from the customer side, it's how can we use the tools that exist in the world to let's say you give me a piece of poor artwork that's you take a picture of an image on a phone and you want it redrawn to look like one of our flex style emblems, for example. Conceptually, the idea is that there would be some tools that we would have access to. They would look at that image and redraw it programmatically and return it to the customer instantly and say, look, this is what your image would look like if produced in flex style. And that's using the tools that these firms are building for us.
So does that kind of take out the graphic artists or the artists that are sitting at the table drawing some of these things?
I think it changes the job.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if it eliminates the position. I don't know if they ever get eliminated, but I think, like everything else, I think it does. It's disruptive. It'll disrupt the department. Look, we haven't had success with it yet. We're now 4 months into this initiative. It's a 12-month engagement, so we're not there yet. But look where we are today. Imagine where we'll be in 5 years from now, and that's kind of the position we're taking with all this.
So you mentioned earlier that you're a little bit paranoid about losing it all. What's the biggest challenge to a company like this, of this size? What are you afraid of?
In my particular case, probably I would say today, it's customer diversification, consolidation of customers, supply chain consolidation, in the sense that we're not vendor rich, in the sense that some of our vendors, we have one or two core vendors for specific materials. I think those are probably the biggest things. Things like cybersecurity, if I was worried about that, I would deal with it. If I'm worried about AI, I'm going to deal with that too. So, things I don't have control over, like customer contract, I have no control over that. What I can do to mitigate that, though, is develop new products and market to new markets, or make acquisitions. And all these things we're working on right now. So if I am concerned about something, it's already being worked on from my leadership team. We're not ignoring anything that's right in front of us.
And with the technology advances, coming daily, if not weekly, or weekly, if not daily, the competition has got to be there. And what enables your company to be the biggest in the world and keep that position?
Well, I'm going to say the same stuff I've said already. I've said it a couple times, but the first thing is the management system of the business is the best. So our ability to manage the business properly using the lean management system is like second to none. There's no question about it. Then are the technical investment we've made over the last 2 decades. We're current or current -1 on every platform we have. So like, I don't have to worry about ERP upgrades or any of that kind of stuff. We're at a current place. I know that the majority of people in our industries are not doing the things that I'm doing. When I look at competitors to learn what they're doing, but I feel like we're ahead of most everybody in our space, and even the people that are on the peripheral of our space. So I don't get overly worried about them, other than just learning and making sure there's something we're not seeing. At this point, we've been around long enough to know what we need to do to have a huge impact on our industry and in our business. So we focus on that.
So if I were to ask your executive team and/or employees, what's Randy's leadership style, what do you think they'd say?
Aggressive and very clear and consistent.
Yeah, that's great. So, when you look at, the future, I know you're always looking at what's next and whatever. What's this company look like in 5 to 10 years? Is it going to be double the size? Are you going to sell to somebody else, do some different things? What do you think the future of this company is?
So I got to be a little careful what I say right now, but yeah, it's going to be bigger for sure. There'll be a couple acquisitions in play. I don't imagine I don't imagine there's some markets we can't get into. There's some markets we cannot get into because we just can't sell into them. So there'll be some required acquisitions in order for us to grow. And that was that customer concentration thing we talked about a little earlier. I mean, those are things that have me concerned. So that'll be one thing. I think technically we'll be doing some tricky stuff with AI and some designer work. And I would think the other thing is we have a sustainable sort of next gen product coming out that should move branded decoration to a whole new place. So I can't get too much into it because it's still kind of under wraps. Sure. But we think that's the $1 billion product.
And do you see your company going into selling some of that technology knowledge and know-how and kind of more of a services type of thing as opposed to doing emblems and patches?
So I wish I were smart enough to answer this, because I'm not. But I'll tell you that we're building an IP portfolio. So I don't quite know what we're going to do with it yet. But I got sued 20 years ago from somebody for violating their patents, their IP. And my attorney said the answer to this is to develop your own IP portfolio.
Okay.
So we're actively developing, and we have some products in the pipeline that are legit. Yeah. So it could get down to licensing product and technology to other businesses. It very well could just be us making the products and selling them.
Yeah. In anticipation of our discussion today, is there anything that I haven't asked or that we haven't covered that you want to be sure to get in the program today?
Yeah, they're always different. Every time I do these things, the questions are always different. I try to paint the picture of what was the breakthrough for me was surrounding myself with really good people. YPO is just ridiculously big. Again, my dad passed away. I never had a chance to ask him all the things that I would ask the people at YPO between 2000 and 2008 when I joined YPO, and I really never took it seriously until about 2011. Those 11 years, I almost wrecked the business like a dozen times I can remember, just from making really stupid, impulsive, not well thought through decisions, no management system, all kinds of these things. And, everybody who asks me now, they're in their 30s, what would you do different? And the answer is always day one YPO, and day two find a mentor. Get around somebody you can trust, and ask every possible question and listen to them. Because the wrong advice can destroy a business.
Absolutely. And those mastermind groups like YPO and Vistage and are so valuable because you can be vulnerable in those groups. You can tell people that you don't have a clue and you need some help, and they're not going to judge you on that.
In YPO, and I can tell you EO too, but YPO in general, the confidentiality, you're out. If you violate the confidentiality, you're out. You get booted right away. So like, yeah, it was probably from the business standpoint, that and getting myself a good psychologist were two of the biggest, for me personally. And then for them would be my group think, and then, and having coaches.
Yeah.
So
well, I think it's a great lesson. And a lot of us think that we have to get to a certain level or get to a certain place before we get a coach or before we get a mentor. And I think the people that I've talked to, like yourself, that figured that out earlier, just to accelerate much faster, because we can, we actually need it more when we're younger and less experienced.
Bro, you always need it. You always need it. Like, every pro athletes have dietitians, coaches, everything. Like, I don't know. And, the other thing is you don't have to pay for it. Like, dude, I would have a conversation with anybody that just said, hey, give me some books to read. Give me something, get me started. Every mistake that I made was because I made the mistake. If somebody told me not to do it, I would have saved $100,000 here, or $40,000 there, or a pissed off customer here that I had to go eat crow for. So yeah, and you don't always have to pay $25,000. There's a lot of people that will do it for free.
Yeah. Well, and you just described something that I think good leaders do as well, is you learn from your mistakes. We all make mistakes, and as long as you learn something from it, then you move on and you're better next time. Yeah,
I don't know how. I was talking to my son. He just got out of school. He's 22. I was like, dude, you're not touching this business till you're 40. I don't know how the businesses hire 30-year-old CEOs. There's so much to be said about experience.
Yeah.
All the learning they go through from getting kicked in the face is what, is where all the value comes from. But again, I use my worldview, and my worldview is painted from my experience.
Well, and I think when you're younger that way, I know I experienced it when I was this young CEO as well, is that you have that imposter syndrome where you don't want anybody to know what you don't know. And it's like, if you can just get over that and just admit, I'm doing the best I can, but I don't have all the answers. I need mentors and coaches and other people to point these things out to me.
There's just no way that there's no way you can know all the things. Even now I'm 52, and I know less now than I knew 20 years ago. That's not physically possible. But the thing I know now is to always ask and to slow down.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say is that to have a little faith.
Yeah. My mantra has always been never be afraid to ask the question. So
it's crazy, legit, 100% true. And and there's a lot of smart people out there.
Well, Randy, at this point in the interview, I always ask my guests the same common question. And that question is, in relation to leadership, what is a pearl of wisdom that you could leave us with today?
Find a mentor.
Say it again.
Find a mentor. Yeah, find a mentor. Yeah, get around. Surround yourself with a good support structure.
Yeah, I think that's come through strong and clear in this interview today. So that's great. Well, it's been a real pleasure talking with you. I wish you the best of luck going forward, and it seems like you're doing great things and really showing the rest of the world how to do things the right way. And as you mentioned, you didn't start that way. You learned it, and you had the great people around you and helped you get to where you're at. So it's pretty impressive.
Still learning it, and I always enjoy these conversations, Stephen. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. So have a great rest of your day, and thanks for being on the program.
All right, brother.
Okay, Randy. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. To listen to all my interviews, subscribe to Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and many other popular podcast platforms. Some of these interviews are on video, and you can search YouTube for Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson. You can also access the entire library of interviews on my website, orange.coaching.com, and that is orangetheword.coaching.com, and go to the Media Center and click on Podcasts or Video Gallery. You can also enter the website from pilpodcast.com.